maybe not. Hey, everybody. I think we're going. Yeah, we're live. How's it going? Hello, I'm Brian Holler. Aaron Washington over here, or he's over here. Maybe he's over here. This is Some Guys Talking. I hope you guys are all well. It's good to see you on another bright and, well, sunny in Southern California, depending on where you are. But a bright Wednesday morning, excuse me. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Anyhow, Wednesday morning, I believe we're here. Good to see everyone. Today, we are going to dip into a very fun, interesting topic about social media and like self-esteem and, things like what you're really seeing out there and how that can apply to not just personal stuff, but professional stuff as well. But first, Aaron Washington, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing awesome. I'm doing fantastic this morning. How are you doing?
Not too shabby. Can't complain. Very excited about all sorts of progress with especially Beard Bros and many of my other clients and stuff. So, yeah, a lot of excitement happening, lots of great momentum, lots of work. But that's to be expected when things are going in a good direction. You've got some fairly new news, as it pertains to some new clientele, and I've been seeing some stuff out there on social. How's that going?
Yes, absolutely. I am excited to be working with Aero Brands on helping them shape the visual marketing for the Aero Vape and the Araya Gummy brand. So it's super exciting. It's a company that I love, products I use. So it's actually a match made in heaven. And Rooted Intellect is doing fantastic. Our store is going to be launching any day, so I'm excited. And we have a fantastic partnership with Damian Solomon and King Solomon's Nutrients. So it's basically bringing commercial grade nutrients. I mean, he's an absolute genius to the consumer to help them grow better plants and veggies and whatever. It helps with everything. So yes, lots of exciting things going on. I'm psyched.
Exactly. Because one of our big themes is, well, you got to let people know what's going on, right?
Yes.
Although that does lead into our topic today. Right? Because social media, right, is quote unquote letting people know what's going on. But you also have control of what information you're putting out there, like what you are letting people know is going on, right? So I think a very interesting place to start probably with this topic is, just a general primer on what people are actually looking at when and I don't mean this even, again, I mean in general. Every time you see a post from anything, from anybody, anywhere, you should always remember that there's two things going on, no matter how noble it may be, right? But there's always these two things going on. One is there is some sort of message that somebody would convey. Buy my widget, follow this thing. We don't like how this is. Hey, I love how this is, right? I love this show, this song, right? I want to express my feelings about XYZ topic to the world, right? These are all very good and valid reasons to put out messaging, right? So that's usually going on to some degree or another. Now, how it's perceived, that's, you have to analyze that yourself. But that part is usually going on. And then the second part is the part we don't talk about, which I think is going to be a big theme of our show today, which is there's the stuff that you're pushing out information that people want to hear, or that you want people to hear, excuse me, right?
Yeah.
But you're also sculpting it in a way that is also making you look usually good, right? It's not a bad thing. When I speak to you, I want to make sure I look good, so like when I'm speaking to you about something, I'm going to try to, do so in coherent sentences, which is not happening so fantastically this morning. But either way, so there is an element of like, of course, and there's an element of like, hey, I'm going to adjust my language for whatever audience I'm in. These are all things that are sort of understood, but they're also easily taken advantage of. Right. And that's, I think, where we could start is, I mean, do people actually know what I just said? Do they actually absorb that? Right? Or are they just taking in the info and reacting? Right? Because I don't know. I've made the sausage for a long time now. So I'm not necessarily in a lot of ways, your typical social media user, I don't think. I do use it actively. and I'm on many platforms often. But I also know what I'm looking at. And I've also made things on purpose and built businesses around, and campaigns, just like you have, and many of the other people probably watching this show have done. So, again, there's an element of, like, of course, we're not going to talk about all the worst things happening in our company unless it's, something that's newsworthy, right? Or worth talking about in terms of, like, maybe overcoming adversity, or, hey, you guys might not understand, but this is a difficult thing happening right now. Here, let me explain it. So those, beyond those sort of other options, I think you got a lot of people just sort of, I'm just wondering, like, what do you think people know how sausage is made?
So do I think people know that people have intentions behind the social media that they post, and
I would think so. That's how you get the triggers, right?
Well, I guess the first question is what is the purpose for the creation of the social media? Because that basically lets you know what the intent is. Like, I'll use myself as an example. When I started on, we'll use LinkedIn as the example. When I started on LinkedIn, it was to promote my cannabis business. Now, there wasn't a lot of, photographs on LinkedIn of cannabis back then. So it was like, okay, this is to grow the business, to show people what I do. Now, that was intent to show my skill, and you need photography, this is what I got it. I'm an expert at what I do, and I will say that. Sorry, I've worked my whole life at it. So yes, since I was
you'd be comfortable saying that. That's fine.
Thank you. So that was that over there. But the other stuff that I started to post, and it was in direct result. So when I started working in cannabis, I can't tell you the people who came out of the woodwork, family, spouse, not my spouse really, but like, well, there's concern, but literally the number of people who came out of the woodwork with this, like, literally the message was, if you work in cannabis or use cannabis, you're a bad parent. You can't possibly be a good parent.
Right.
And it was like, oh, really? And it's funny, at the same time, my oldest was coming, she had health class, and her teacher was telling her, oh, if you smoke weed, you're lazy and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, we're going to have it. So we have an open relationship. And I said, I'm going to, like, talk to you about it, whatever. But saying all that, I started to post stuff on LinkedIn. I was taking a break from other social medias, but I just started to post family stuff and it was almost in direct kind of defiance to people who said, oh, you're a bad parent if you do this. And it's like, okay, so if you drink alcohol and do X, Y, and Z, you're a better parent just because you don't smoke weed. So that whole thing, like the family stuff that I post, that is coming from, well, at first it came from a kind of place like, I'm going to show people that that's not the case. But then it was more, it kind of evolved into, because I'm an Aquarius, I'll do things out of spite. If you don't believe in me, I'll die trying to be wrong. That's just me. Like, you doubt me? Okay, let's see what happens, because I will.
At least you're self-aware. You know what I mean? Like, you can warn folks.
100%. But then it moved into this other place, because I did have people, reaching out and saying, hey, I appreciate you showing, what it's like for dads, or I appreciate what it's like for Black men, or whatever. So I had people coming out. So then, with that, I was able to just live my authentic self. So there are well-crafted, things that you do for social media. But in terms of, like, honestly, I think some of the stuff I post is silly and ridiculous, and, like, probably makes me look a little crazy when I'm just having fun. But it's like, no, I'm going to be authentically myself. So it all depends on what the purpose of that social media message, why it was crafted. You know what I mean?
Yes. Also, sources are important, because often people will, post things and then add a source to it, right? Like, or they're talking about an article and they post the article, right? And I mean, as someone in media, I know how important it is to, make sure that you're, like, again, people are allowed to put out whatever messaging they, pretty much like to. I'm a strong First Amendment guy, but ultimately, it's important for us as consumers of said media to understand sort of some things about behind the organizations that might be, putting out this messaging, right? No commentary one way or the other. I'm just saying you should know, right?
Mhm.
Okay, well, if this comes from this source, I know that this company is run by, folks who think this certain way. So they're going to basically speak through that lens. That's okay. I
Mhm.
mean, that we get that.
The
But I
crafted
think
message.
correct, yes. And so if you combine the two things we're just talking about right now, right, that mixed with it's a crafted message or there's strategy to it, right? And that's what I'm saying. And even in your case, when you're talking about your family picks and stuff, there was strategy. You were thinking strategically,
Oh, in the
right?
beginning, mine, yeah, I'm like, oh,
Of course.
I suck as a
And
parent. Yeah, okay, no, I know I don't suck as a parent. So anyway, go ahead.
right. So, like, and as somebody who even like works as a strategist, in some ways, but that's also why social media should never be taken as purely authentic. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
even myself, like I try to put out a lot of good messaging about, I don't know, motivate, like stuff that doesn't get clicks because I don't ask for calls to action ever. I'll just write like some thoughts and a nice quote that sort of either echoes those or whatever. People like that stuff, but it doesn't get a lot of engagement. So I
Hmm.
always get the things like it's sort of like this show. Of course, this show doesn't get engagement because we're not doing a lot of things you're supposed to do. But the topics that we talk about on this show, while interesting to people, aren't the things that people are going to be like, ooh, let me go ahead and like that so that I can admit to everybody that I listen to things about how social media messes with your self-esteem and shit. Like people aren't like, you know what I mean? So for us, if we really wanted to get after it, I think we would have to create campaigns in very unique ways and sort of try to capture sort of new audience in different ways. Again, and so listen to me, right? I'm talking about our show, right, that we try to like our whole thing is we're trying to be as authentic as possible,
Hmm.
yet shooting you straight about like, hey, we'd like to grow, we're going to do these things, right, which is sort of my mo, period. I'm not opposed to gray area or taking chances or ruffling feathers at all. In fact, I know that I do. I'm okay with it, but I also want to do it under the context of like, hey, ultimately I do want everybody to get along. I want us to all grow together. I
Hmm.
want us to be thriving and happy. I want plant medicine to get in the hands of people that need it. All these things are true. I also want to make money. I also want to have a good life when I'm older, right? I
Hmm.
also want to be able to take care of certain people in my life, right? So, I mean, like, that's everybody, and
Hmm.
I think that's interesting. I think that's important for people to know. And again, circles back to one of our common themes of this show, which is have a little grace, not just for others, but for yourself too, right?
Hmm.
But in this case, we're talking about others. So, when that person puts out that stuff that makes you roll your eyes and tease if you like, but ultimately, maybe remember where that's coming from, right? Maybe there is some authenticity there, right? Maybe they're not just searching for likes. Maybe they're not acting desperate online. Maybe they really are having a problem, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that happens too. But then there's the whole, and then it just gets to like, but should you show that much of yourself? Do people want to know your problems? They got enough shit to deal with, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this goes into the self-esteem thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's two ways, right? Like why you're posting and how that affects you, right? But
Yep.
then what you're receiving and how you think about what you're receiving. And each
Right.
of those elements affect your social or yourself can affect your self-esteem in really interesting ways, which is a lot of the sort of things we see out there, and certainly in the front lines of the critiques of social media.
Hmm.
You know,
Well,
so
there's a lot there's a lot there because you think about like, well, something that struck what you said, with like it depends on what you feel like sharing. Like there are people, there's different varying degrees of that. Like for me, I'm going to share the positive. Am I going to share and be like, hey, please help me? No, I'm not going to.
not you,
You know,
especially
other and
not
other
you.
people feel comfortable doing that, and that's
We
not
do.
like faulting anyone. It is what it is. But so that kind of also goes with the intention of why you're creating the social media. Like when I create stuff, mine is to uplift and inspire and not to drag down. So that's why the thought process is like, okay, what if I'm going to post something, what is the purpose of it? Is it to like uplift it? And there is most of, like, I have silly shit that I post about just like whatever, smoking and just whatever, just enjoying life or just being
Sure.
dumb. But everything that I post, I try to have an ultimate message. There's something in it, whether it's parents, time is precious, or
Sure.
appreciate life. Like every time I do something, I try to make sure that there is a message in it, and it's not just pointless, like unless it's something like I'm in my office and there are frogs really loudly looking for mates. That's funny to me. It makes
Sure.
me giggle, and I want to share. If someone likes it, great. If not, they roll their eyes. Like you said, roll their eyes and keep going.
Yeah.
This guy. And it's like, yep, I have the sense of humor of a 14.
Yes, I am that guy. So like, it's cool. Like, like I get it. No problem. Can I stretch into the corny sometimes? Of course. Can I lean into the cheesy? Of course. Sometimes that's just me.
All right,
but
so
I get it.
Let's explore that, because we were talking about that before.
We were.
And just when you're authentically like that, sweet or whatever,
Yep.
you were talking about people ribbing about, signing off, like, whatever, all the best or whatever.
Well,
and
the whole
I'm like,
email thing, but yeah.
And I said, stop. I said, don't tell me that people make fun of that, because that's always been me. I'm always like, all the best or whatever. That's just me. So I'm like, so to hear you say that people make fun of that, I'm like,
but they do it in a fun way. Like, it's not like literally making fun. It's not like, oh, this bothers me kind of thing. No, it's like, let's create a very nice environment, but don't worry, buddy. I get it. We're good. Like everything's healthy, right?
It's authentic.
I mean, it is me. So yeah, I mean, ultimately that's something I like. If I'm working with new clients or like new people and whatever, I'm like, I always do hope you're well and thanks in emails. I mean, for the most part, right? Where you can tease me is if I've done that to you 4 times in a day. And we talk like 4 times as well. Right. So probably, I don't have to be doing that in our, internal emails like multiple times a day. So, but it's such a knee jerk, that I always want to make sure, that it's stated that I hope all things are good. And I thank you for your moment of time that you're taking a look at my stuff or dealing with whatever shit I've had to ask you to do for me or with me or whatever. Part of that's politeness, of course, and part of it's just like making sure, because emails, man, people get, same with social posts. If you don't say that, like, they will dig in. They will try to insinuate, tone or like, they'll try to feel like, oh, he didn't use an exclamation point, so he must be actually saying that sarcastically, or he's mad, or the person's angry, right? And they just hyper analyze everything. So I'm like, I'd rather just be corny as hell then, Like, let me just be the nicest guy ever. And so if you can dig into it, you're going to just say, if anything, Brian just cares too much or he's too cornball. Fine. Like, I'll take that.
And I've said that, and the more that I get in my age, I'm just like, I'm like, well, that's just me. Whatever. I'm that guy. Yeah. Well, you were saying tone, and it made me laugh because I have one of my high school buddies, and if I post this on Facebook, you know who you are. His tone in text, and we go back and forth and I'm glad, like, it's amazing. Me and my high school, but we still text on stupid shit like we're kids. Sure. And the tone of one of us is just like, oh, and it's just like he has no idea that tone just. I love you, Senti. Anyway, but yeah, no, it's well, looking back to what we were talking about, just in terms of the social media and self-esteem, it's one of those things where, but you do recognize, and I appreciate when I see people who are on social media and they're authentically, it is what it is. Like, if people can just live authentically, again, you don't gotta like it, but you gotta respect it, because that's who they are. I'm not saying like authentically an asshole. Just authentically,
I'll say, I'll even stretch it to that though. If that's who you are and you found a way to sort of convey that in a way that's like, not ostracizing people or not like necessarily, or you might be, you're just pointing fingers at people who are doing stuff that you don't agree with. That's like there's whole genres of like lanes of, media and operations that are done that way. So, like, I would rather 100% of the time, even somebody I disagree with, I'd rather have them be honest and to who they are with me or in front of me, or if you're putting out messaging to, that I might see, I would rather you like lean into what you actually are. See, that's where I think we get into some problems too. And that does mess with self-esteem, because I guess, again, what we were saying earlier really is there's a certain level of manipulation to all of this.
Right. how you
Even if
choose
you're
to
just
present.
the kid at home, posting on IG because like your new Nikes or whatever. You want people to see the Nikes. You
Right.
want people to engage with you. That's why you tagged Nike, and that's why you went hashtag just do it. You know what I'm saying? Like again, and so don't save all that. Don't it's okay to be self-aggrandizing. It's cool. It's no problem, right? If that's your bag, all good. A lot of famous people, a lot of great things have been done by people who can do that. You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, marketing's a thing. Needing to present your messaging or your business or your service in a certain capacity that aligns with what the team wants, and then what we put out there. There's these vehicles for you to promote your business, your things, your events, your products. You should use them. There's millions and millions and millions of people on them. So you unfortunately need to be, in many ways, they're a needed sort of thing at this point, right? And so I think that's an interesting part of it too. Is I hear that more than ever today. It's social media being a necessary evil, or things of like that. My point has always been, it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be. That's one of the purposes of this show. Is for us to at least go, hey, we're doing our part, at least in our minds, to put out messaging and content and being authentic and kind of backing up all the things we say we'd like to see. But are there selfish or reasons that we don't talk about that we're doing this? Well, sure. Of course. Right? There's personal reasons that I don't necessarily get into deeply. Same for you. There's professional reasons why we might do this together that we don't dig into, but there's strategy to the fact that we're here talking and that we're putting out this stuff to the audience every week. Right? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I just like to help people.
Right. So
that's all we're really trying to do. I just want to make people feel good.
Right? But that's what everybody's going to say. So the people that we don't think are helpful are going to say the same thing. Hey, maybe I'm not for you, right? So again, I think we're talking about it in a very noble way. The truth is, as we both know, there's a lot of money to be made in deceiving people. And leaning into,
I don't know if there's a lot of money to be made helping and being honest. I think there's a lot of money to be made in throwing fires, but
that's what I mean.
Know. I'm not seeing people doing just good, positive messages and just that. That's it. That's what's hitting. It has to be over the top. I'm gonna help you walk through walls and that kind of thing. Or it has to be this there's not a lot of
that is true. There's not really you're right. It's either doom and gloom, which sells, and that's what we're talking about here, right? So lean into they're coming to get you. Yeah. These people are hurting you. These businesses are super bad. Don't go here. Again, some element of that is needed, I'll say. But to your point, the ratio is pretty messed up. And then of course you have a ton of businesses designed to continue to stroke those flames because that's how they make their most money, right? Again, by the way, folks, I don't know if you know this, but engagement actually pays.
Right.
So if you get people to engage with your content, it actually sends money to your pocket on certain platforms. And in all of them, it can do that if you have something that you can sell. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but you can make money. And so if you basically are able to, sculpt a whatever, if you can have no scruples,
but that's really I was just gonna say, but I'm gonna be ridiculous. I care about the things that come out of my mouth because I've got children. So no.
What are you talking about?
It's just no, you can't just say whatever. You got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. You got to be able to look at your yeah, okay.
It's funny, you're right. Some people don't care about that, but I see them just deteriorate over time.
There's either
they make their money. I've seen that make their money, but they there's always something super obviously wrong with all people like that, right? But whether it's being a dick or they, because they're self-esteem issues, they're presenting it in physical ways, even though they're making money and getting more influence, right? You can see it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just tapping into sort of weird vibes here, energy type stuff. But truth of the matter is, I feel like people who are clogged up that way, right? Mm-hmm. Who feel like they have to sculpt a whole different, like lies, You know what I mean? Like, again, it's very subtle, right? Like, does it matter if you have somebody who does your LinkedIn for you? No. In fact, a lot of busy people already have that going on. Totally understandable. Is it bad if people make content for your LinkedIn that's not you? No, that's totally fine. Done many times. All good in the hood. No worries at all. Right? What you're putting out there, though, to your point here, is where you can run into trouble. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with you having a team that helps. There's nothing wrong with you putting out messaging that strokes fires or that's controversial. Hey, if that's your bag, all good. We want things to drop. You want to drop topics into the discourse that people will talk about. That makes sense, of course, right? So sure, throw it into the discourse, see what happens. All good. And if that's your bag to do it, that's great. LinkedIn's fantastic that way because you can sort of do that without it being like controversial subjects because people want to learn about different aspects of business. Mm-hmm. So you can say, hey, when I'm doing marketing, I like to do this. What do you all think? And then there'll be a nice little discourse of, mm-hmm. Oh, you guys, I do it this way. I do it this way. I don't like this. I don't like this. And that's good. That's what you want, right? But then there's also like people who are putting out personas and information that's not in line with what they A, can do, mm-hmm. B, who they are, mm-hmm. or C, when they're called to task on it, they fail miserably because they've done a great job of putting out this persona or this like thing that's basically a lie. So when you go to call them on it, it crumbles like a house of cards. However, that engagement does pretty well.
You said house of cards, but with most things, if you don't build it on a solid foundation, then it's not going to go anywhere anyway.
Agreed.
But to that point, it's like, and that's what it is. Like, what is like, yes, it's easy, I guess, to sell with the clickbait over the top, but it's like over the top negativity, or it's like, I want you to do exactly what I do because I'm the best and I'm going to make you the best. Like, there's really no in between of, look, this stuff has worked for me. I hope it helps you. If it's not something that you're down with, then you can, like, whatever you like, you can take, and whatever you don't like, you drop at the curb. But it's not, you have to do things exactly what I want and buy these books and these things. So it's just interesting. There's really like no middle ground of like, literally, you give a shit about the people that you're talking to. You're not talking down to them. You're not trying to scare them. You're literally just trying to help them and say, I've learned a lot. And that's basically like, and the reason why I do this and the reason why I post anything is that I've had some experiences and been through some shit. So if anybody can learn from what I've done and not do that same thing, then I hope that helps you. And here you go. I don't want it, like, whatever. Thank you very much. I hope that works for you. So it all depends on how and why you are creating that message. But there aren't many that are just, it's so like, hyperbolic on each side that it just, there's just no normalcy. So a normal thing of us just talking about we want to help people, how does that drive? If we said today we're going to talk about fighting with your spouse,
how does that drive?
Like,
whatever. It doesn't really, like, but it does give us attention, and it gives people who might like mess with the companies we work with or want to reach out to us or work with us or anything like that. And it gives other people an opportunity to reach out to two people that would probably respond to them. So there's that. But like ultimately, I think there's
the benefit of that, because I do.
Like, there's not the straightforward benefit. Like, hey, we're doing a business webinar. Hey, there's leads, people who came to see a thing. Let's send them an email. Let's go ahead and see if they'll buy our widgets or take our services. Right? Like, we don't really have that kind of a thing going on. So, but that's okay.
No,
ours is more of like awareness.
Right now, the coolest thing is that over the couple years that I've been on LinkedIn, I can't tell you the number of people who have reached out to me and been like, hey, dude, I'm I'm sober. Like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
I've been putting out these positive motivational messages for over 10 years, steady, literally, almost every day, some I've done so many times I just repeat and I can just tweak and but they all make sense. They're all salient. Some exhaust, but I just make more and it's really easy. the amount of, again, this is how I know, this is very indicative of our show as well, right? If you looked at our engagement, you would think nobody watches any of this, right? But we know that's not true. And I know that's not true, not just with data, but I also know it based on, people reaching out and saying, hey, I think it's really cool that you are talking about these things, or that you guys are doing this. And that's not just anecdotal. That's literally, as we've been doing this over time, more people are saying that to me as we continue to move forward. Right. At first, it was just my friends or people that totally knew that we were doing this, and they had really nice things to say too. And I'm always very thankful when people, provide a compliment or a very nice thing. It's very, humbling, flattering, etc. But more of that has been happening.
Mm-hmm.
But our numbers, not at all impressive, and very, and you would not really be able to see it. That's the same with my whole thing. And again, this sort of leads to another thing we were talking about prior to hopping on or to going live, which is it's not always for everybody about how many followers or how many new audience you get. I get, for some people, it very much is.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, I would argue that instead of having 10,000 followers that don't engage really that often, and maybe you got them by just really kind of just grinding it out and not really doing it the right way to get a true community built, right? I think that's probably a problem in how sort of people are analyzing it, because it's more of a the ability to have the right followers, not the amount of followers.
Right.
So for us, I mean, if we ever got to millions and millions, great. That would be fantastic. But I'll take, one dedicated person who's like, wow, I really like what you're doing, and this is really great, and I like to engage with the content, right? And if I can get 100 of those, they're worth 10,000 of not that.
Right.
They are. The trick is, can you get tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of those? That's why you see some crazy, ridiculous engagement numbers on, like with people like, that's another thing I want to say is a lot of these people, like, again, the most people are known for putting out the most positive messaging, like a Gary Vee, right? Most of these people have something in common. They all have money, and they didn't make it by putting out positive messaging. So everybody should remember that. Right? I'm glad that Gary V's of the world, Damon Johns, other people who I could point to who've made good money as entrepreneurs, right? Business developers, etc., that they've done so through building teams in what I would consider the quote unquote right way, and treating their employees well, and being a good steward of with their partners and vendors as best you can. I mean, everybody goes through stuff, but if you have a fairly decent reputation in that regard, right, and it's built on a good foundation of, right, hey, we're going to communicate with effectively, we're going to analyze stuff, but we're also going to have fun, we're going to be, together, we're going to treat each other with respect, I'm going to take care of you as a boss, etc., etc. Like there is a lot of that messaging out there, but I think people take it with a grain of salt, because the most well-known of that is all people who didn't get well-known for doing that, right? Whereas when you're talking about things who are bear pokers or shitsters, if you will, they often got famous for doing that, whether you agree with it or not. So there is I think, internal link in our heads, right? Oh, well, you have money, Gary Vee, so you got your own team. Like, oh, great. So no wonder you can be so happy, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's two. Whoever. That's crazy. You don't know.
I know Damon John, so we'll keep going.
Fine. Somebody who puts out a lot of positive messaging that does that, but they got there because they were entrepreneurial, right? They're good business people, right? So I think people take that kind of a stuff with a grain of salt, because it's like, well, you've got your money, of course you're happy, right? You've got lots of business, of course you're happy, right? And then you add on to that, everybody does know that you're only putting out what you want people to see for the most part, right? So I think that's a lot of, like, I think the self-esteem issues are often what I don't think address is, like, people act like people are victims of social media. They're not. It's the dynamic that's caused there. Like it's the back and forth. It's like, and I guess I guess truly, like, there's a lot of maybe not as knowledgeable people out there that are absorbing information and don't understand that it's, written not by a proper authority, or that this is a
Mhm.
lie, right? Because there's just
Mhm.
flat out lying, that goes on. So I do think that my point is, I don't think our self-esteems are and social media are caused only by outward influence. It's often what's going on in here, right?
Mhm.
It's causing some of that messaging, right, to come
Well,
out of
is
you,
that
or
because
even like that. Yeah, talk.
is that because you're judging yourself and how you measure up, and you're looking at what they're presenting?
Sure. I mean, that's all. That's an
You?
American staple, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's one we do real well, is to talk out of both sides of our mouth, right? Hey, you're great. You're great just the way you are, but you should really look like this and have this much money, and you should probably look like this and act like this. That's America. It is. It's the entire, it's our whole. I just basically listed every marketing campaign, propaganda campaign that ever existed in America. It's basically, hey, this is a great place. We're all equal. It's fantastic. This is amazing. It's a melting pot. You can be entrepreneurial here, live the American dream, all this great stuff, right? And then over here it's, well, but you should look like this and believe in this religion, and you should have this much money already, and you should really just covet sex and like food, and
You're
like
right. You're preaching to the choir.
I know, but what I'm saying is like,
I know about the promises of smiling, and
it's,
then it's like everything's all good, and it's like, is it? But is it? But is
right. So, and again, I'll even begrudgingly admit that there is a level of understanding to that sort of thing. Can't give away the farm. You can't basically, can't tell people, the real sometimes, but if that's the case, you should be able to say, I can't tell you the real. I can't. You should be able to admit that why you can't say it, right? And then of course we don't have that at all. Like, no one takes accountability for any of this. And
there are
so,
there are times when you're dancing around a subject, but you don't want to touch it, but you're like, I don't know. All right, I'm gonna let you do your thing.
no, keep going. Like, I don't know if I'm dancing around anything. What do you think I'm dancing around?
No, that you want to call a particular person out that is talk some shit or bullshit.
Oh
There,
no,
there, there is a lot of people that make promises out there in social media world that cannot deliver what they promise. And should people do that? Hell no. But in
no.
most cases, when you build that foundation on making promises you can, or even like back to what we were saying, if you build your foundation on this hyperbolic, like everything in the world's awful, or be positive, like positive like me and run through walls, that's never going to work out. Like if things are not built on any foundation of anything, and they like it's flash in the pan, that's why a lot of the stuff that's going on in the world, and I see people making fools of themselves and whatever, I know this is not going to work out well for you. Like whenever people like try to build something on flash and smoke and mirrors and lies and empty promises, it
Yep,
always fails.
yep,
Always. Always.
yep.
Because there literally is nothing there. So if you're just fooling people with this, eventually you're gonna have to open up your hand and they see that there's nothing there. And
Well, yeah.
that's where, so with that, when people act like that, it's just like, all right, dude, that is not gonna work out well for you. And you're gonna fall on your face, and I'm gonna be there to watch you because
Yep.
it's not real.
Right.
That's my justification to not go crazy with all of the stuff that I see going on in the world and people just doing whatever. I just know in my heart of hearts, this ain't going to work out well. So good luck. I'm going to stand over here and watch you self-destruct. But that's how I can rationalize to myself without going crazy, that I know that things aren't going to turn well when you put all of your hope, whatever, when you believe in things that don't have any foundation to it, whatever it is, business, whatever,
Sure.
it ain't gonna be good, and you don't want to be around when it all.
I agree. And to your point, or to your earlier suggestion, there's not, I mean, if I spoke about, like, again, there's not one person I'm thinking of when I'm saying these things. There's not one company. There's like 50 million. Like, again, there's like, I can think of tons of people that I don't think do that job correctly. I can think of tons of businesses that are mad, deceitful, and put out horrible messaging. That's a big, facade. I can think of large, scale campaigns politically that are full of shit, that are designed to like divide and take away people's rights and money, and all this good and all this stuff. Like, it's like, again, that's what that's what's
There's
happening.
a lot of bullshit out there.
Right,
There's a lot of bullshit messaging.
And there's a lot of money in that bullshit, and there's a lot of power and influence in that bullshit. So that's, again, we might be able to sit here and say and act like we're holier than thou, but we're not. And secondly, those folks have, like, again, a lot of power and influence. That's why we're talking about it this way, not because it's, oh, we can all do better, which sure, but it's because you need to be aware of this. Like, again, to help your self-esteem, because social media is such an integral part of people's lives for many reasons.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people are forced to be involved with it, truthfully. Right. Like, they wouldn't give a crap about it personally. You're not going to see a picture of their dog and cats, but they'll share their business. They have to work on the team. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of that too. Right. So, I mean, ultimately, I just think it's important that everybody remembers that everybody's doing sort of the same things in a lot of ways. And it is important for you to, and back to one thing that you've said, and we've talked about this on the show a lot, is you being triggered, right? That's, I mean, what is engagement? Like, what are you looking for when you post, right? Well, I want as many likes and as many comments as I can get in a shortest amount of time, because then I'll get more and more and more of them. And say viral post, which does not really even set them anymore, because it doesn't exist, because you have to pay for them now. It does occasionally, and one takes off, but it's very rare. Anyhow, my point is, you're wanting people to engage with that message. So sometimes the same things we would critique people about doing, because maybe we don't like that message or the way they're doing it, we still want the desired result for what we're doing too. We do. And that's a place where I think you can sort of maybe take it with a grain of salt with everybody else, right? Also, for your own mental health, right? Like, you can't be going down these rabbit holes and staying in those places so long. You got to be careful about that, right? Did you blink and all of a sudden everything is one sort of messaging and one sort of like stuff on your feeds? It's because there's the echo chambers that are created purposely, because that's how you create more engagement. So, what kind of echo chamber is it? Or, like, is it one where we free think and we're allowed to have multiple perspectives and everything's great? Awesome. But guess what? They're not really like that often. In fact, they're usually more designed to get you to hone in on a certain set of beliefs or a certain set of things that are going on. And it's not always nefarious like this. It could just be like, hi, we want you to basically buy our toothpaste. So we have a group where we talk about how good our toothpaste is, and we do best practices for dental care and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not always nefarious, but that is the desired result.
So we just need to be aware that there's a purpose for messages and why they're crafted.
Correct. And you've got to make sure that you look at sources a little bit more than you might want to. Like, it's one thing if it comes out from like MSNBC, for instance, I can go, okay, well, that's probably a little bit on the, like, it's probably Democratic filtered. It's a little bit, it might be center politically. Okay, fine. Like, I can understand that's what that's coming from. But if it comes from like, I don't know, KKK Today, then maybe I got to take that with a grain of salt. Hey, is that a media outlet I've ever heard of? No. I'm pretty sure they're white supremacists. So they're probably talking about things from that perspective. Oh, I might need to know that. So when they say this, they don't mean, they mean it this way. Or they're saying this about this. Oh, I don't agree with that, right? Like, so again, you just need to make those like links, those connections in your head, which, to be fair, is not easy for everybody to do. And should we have to do that? Well, that's a good question. Should we have to do that? It's an interesting question.
Well, unfortunately, in most cases, we all kind of do live in our echo chambers. They might be a little bit bigger with a little bit, a couple more sources, but for the most part, we do live in because that's just kind of where we are now. There's really no nuance. Everything is just like, just black and white, just this is wrong, right, positive. It's just, that's literally where we are, and it's crazy. So yeah, well, I don't know. I know that people craft messages for whatever they could be, for good, nefarious purposes or whatever purposes. My purpose is, my family shit. I love my kids, I love my family, and that's how I post it. I'm sure people get sick of it, but I don't give a shit, because whatever, you can keep scrolling. So that's the reason why I post. and
And
to
I
show
think
people that weed is awesome and can give you and can help you live a better quality of life. And yeah, that's my message.
I I uh I like to be well rounded. Like I like a lot of things. I like the fact I like social media. I do. I got no problems with it. Like I like that I've been able to, do what I do for so
Mhm.
long, and and I enjoy it. Even though it's certainly more than welcome to talk about the negative aspects of it, of which there are many. Um, but ultimately, I think you have a little more control over things. I think if we could be dreamers for a moment, you and I would say, hey, maybe lean into your, best self a little bit more, right? When you're posting out things, or don't be afraid to post. Like all of you who are voyeurs, because that's the majority of social media users, right? They're not posting anything; they're looking and maybe engaging with the content. That's most people on most platforms. So if you, I'd say for those people, post something occasionally that does jive with your sort of positive outlook. Because I think
Mhm.
a lot of it's like we're eating popcorn and watching something happen, but what you don't realize is it's happening to you at the same time. So we act like it's some spectator sport. We're actually involved. So when people are like, "Ooh, I'm
Mhm.
just going to sit back and eat popcorn," you're actually part of this. So you're not eating popcorn. You're contributing to the discourse that's going on there. And when you say that, you're encouraging people to, right? So of course we want to see the pro wrestling match, right? Remember though, it's a pro wrestling match. Remember, it's not real fighting, but it's really cool and creative and has a lot of great benefits and a lot of great aspects to it, and it's entertaining. So remember that though, social media is much more akin to pro wrestling than it is to a real sport. If I'm going to further the metaphor,
But I would also say this, but it also depends on what kind of things you consume on social media, because I get it, social media can be a problem, but social media isn't a problem if you don't allow it to be a problem. Like
that's
if
exactly
you like I the thing is, there's plenty of stuff that goes on with the negativity in the industry. Am I going to get involved in it? Nope, because it don't
right.
affect
Only if
me.
it's
And
absolutely
here's the thing.
needed.
I'll never put energy into anything that isn't going to benefit things. Like, why am I gonna like yapping and whatever? So whether it's you have to you like craft your feed with an algorithm when it suggests something that you don't want to see, you do
Sure.
that. So I know when I turn on my fire up, what I'm looking at drum tutorials, I'm looking at like
Yeah.
music shit and like
Yeah.
whatever,
I
like
mean,
stuff that
I like
you
that
know,
point, and there are ways you can
I
control some
do.
of this, right? Like
I don't.
in your
I'm
post, you can
critical
say
with
like,
what
I
I,
want to see more of this, less of this, right?
yeah,
You can say, don't show me things like this anymore, right?
that's what
So you do have some control and some functionality over it. And quite frankly, I'll be fair to the social media platforms. They just want to feed you what you want.
yeah. And
They really do.
you
Now, do
yeah.
they have algorithms and things in place to really get it in your face like really well? Of course. But part of why they're doing it is because you've had some indicators based on past engagement that would
Mhm.
lead them to believe that you would be interested in such topics,
Yeah.
right? Now, again, do we sometimes explore things we disagree with because we want to learn more about them? Yes. And that's, I
Yeah.
think, when you run into some issues there. But
And
yes, we have
then you
control
have to
over that.
stop it because
Yeah. You're going to be like, oh, shit. If I go down this rabbit hole, I'm going to be fed all the things for
well,
this thing.
and I had something about like, and again, and this is how you have to like literally and just really quickly. Every once in a while I watch something stupid like Fail Army or How Ridiculous, where they just
Sure.
blow shit up. It's
Right.
silly stuff. But then watching that kind of destruction, then I get a suggestion. Hey, let me see you shoot an AR-15 at a mannequin that looks like a human. Nope, I don't want
Yeah.
that.
Right.
I want to laugh. That's not fun to me. It's like click.
No.
So
So, all
it
right.
all
So,
depends on what you choose. Like if you want to
agreed.
consume that, because you said it, you're right. They give you what you are looking for. And whatever you're looking for is out there.
Yep.
So
It
yeah,
is. So again, it comes
interesting.
back to our CTAs. I mean, we
Yeah,
could talk about this topic forever, but I think it's time to wrap up. But the CTAs are very similar, right? It's basically, you know, maybe take a little bit more control over your habits on social media, right? Don't be afraid to post whatever you want. you know, because I think if people had less fear about posting, I think we'd see more positive messages. I think most of the people who are shy about that are people who would want to put out nice stuff, and they just are like, this doesn't cause controversy, it's corny, whatever. And so, I won't do it. Let me go watch this other stuff, right? No, post the thing with your dog. Post your daughter and this. Post the like inspirational message that hit you in the heart that weekend or whatever. Like, do it. Anyways. And then secondly, remember what you're looking at, and remember that you have more control over of the situation. And pay attention to sources. But that's the journalist in me. I can't help it.
Mine is going to be just to what you said. That point is that just authentically embrace yourself, who you are. And I love the fact that, like, early on, like posting pictures of my kids, I felt kind of silly. Like, this isn't Facebook, I'm on this business platform posting pictures. But I love to see, now we see pictures of people's kids and dogs and babies being born. That is all that if it was there before, I'm sorry I didn't see it, but just to see that.
Well, why do you do all this work?
That was not a part of
it.
Now, I love it. Like, you see
right?
people's like milestones, so it goes beyond. And I think, and you know what, and that 100% helps to the point that we never even got to remember that people are more than their jobs. You think of someone as like whatever CEO, blah 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 blah. But they have real stuff going on. They're real people, real desire. So with that, you get to see, hey, this person does this, but look at their kid, look at their baby. It's like that's dope.
That's one thing I advise everybody I work with, that I do any sort of strategy or work on LinkedIn with. I'm like, whatever you're comfortable sharing, of course, because you need to be comfortable with it. But anything that could show you as a well-rounded, holistic human being is going to be helpful, because we're going to already have enough content that's going to show about your career. Right. We can do that. That's part of what you do on LinkedIn. But if you can wrap that into like, hey, I'm a human being too, and I've got a sense of humor, or hey, I care about these other things too, that's a good thing. Anyhow,
because the last thing before we sign off, because the thing that it actually helps, and it takes away the division between us, and it allows us to see the similarities between us. And you see people with their kids, and it's like, because that's the thing. We see all these differences, but the differences are probably like 5% to less. We have so much in common. So that's the other thing. So love each other, and just, positivity.
Yes, love each other, have a little grace, and make sure that you take a breath before you react to what you're looking at. That's really,
and always try to be your authentic self. You should never change who you are for anybody else. That's just uncomfortable. Be you. Love yourself.
Love y'all. Love you, Aaron. We'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.